About the car, I'll take it. The loan is in your name, so you'll take care of the remaining payments, okay? You see, I've fallen in love with someone else. Saying this, my husband suddenly disappeared. What was left for me was a daughter and a debt of $500,000. I am Donna, 40 years old, a working housewife in DC. My family consists of my husband Luke, who is the same age as me, and our 12-year-old daughter Janet. Janet has been incredibly intelligent since she was young. By the time she started elementary school, she could read and write effortlessly and had memorized numerous encyclopedias. Watching the news, she would start debates with me, a truly curious child. She was the best in her class academically, and her quick thinking was astounding. It's hard to believe that someone with such a high IQ was my child. As her parents, we were always amazed by Janet's intelligence. On the other hand, Luke was always lazy and fickle, quitting every job he got. He hopped from one company to another, and whenever his salary seemed to increase, it would soon return to the level of his first salary. Our family never saved any money, and our future seemed so uncertain that I wanted to quit my job to focus on and develop Janet's potential. However, I couldn't afford to quit, as we needed my income. So I reluctantly continued to work full-time. Recently, Luke's job finally stabilized. He surpassed his record of 1 year of continuous employment, staying at the same place for 3 years, becoming a permanent employee with a stable income. Until then, he was just lazy, but he started talking about nurturing Janet's intellectual curiosity and creating family memories. So despite the risks, we bought a large van worth $60,000, a significant upgrade from our small car. This van has a spacious cargo area suitable for placing a makeshift bed, almost like a camper van. However, as Luke had just become a full-time employee, his credit wasn't good enough for a loan, so we had to take it out in my name. This was expected as even our home loan was in my name. Then, on the day the van was finally delivered, an incident occurred. I couldn't take the day off from work, so Luke went to pick up the van. During work, I saw a message from him on my phone. I'll take the car. Since the loan is in your name, you'll handle the repayments. Thanks. Confused by this sudden message, I immediately called Luke. I thought he might ignore me, but he casually answered the phone. What's up? What do you mean, what's up? What's the meaning of your message? It means exactly what it says. Luke, with a look of confusion, said, I don't understand what you're saying. But to me, it made even less sense. Then, unexpectedly, Luke said something I could never have anticipated. You see, I've fallen in love with another woman. What? What do you mean? I asked, completely stunned. At first, it was just a fling, but now I'm serious about her. I've decided to start my life over with her, so see ya. Leaving me speechless. Luke was about to hang up, but then said something shocking. Oh, by the way, I still have the divorce papers we signed during the fight. I'll file them. Finally, he said that, and before I could respond, the call was abruptly ended. Hearing the beep beep of the disconnected line, I realized the extent of the betrayal. Understanding the situation, I was frozen in place, as if struck by lightning. After that, no matter how many times I called, Luke never answered the phone again. After Luke's sudden departure, I was left in a daze. I couldn't focus at work, wondering if this was all just a dream. As I returned home. Indeed, it was true that during a past argument, we impulsively signed our divorce papers. Opening the drawer where those papers were kept, I found they had indeed disappeared. Thus, I was left with a massive debt, a $60,000 loan for the car and $440,000 remaining on our house mortgage, totaling approximately $500,000. I understood the situation but couldn't accept it. I repeatedly messaged and called Luke, but whether he ignored them or not, he never responded even though he read the messages. with no idea of his whereabouts. It seemed like Luke had truly vanished. My perceptive daughter Janet couldn't help but notice my state. A few days later, after dinner, she looked at me worriedly. "Mom, are you okay? Have you been feeling unwell lately?" Startled, I thought about pretending everything was fine, but realized my poor acting wouldn't fool her. I decided to be honest about my feelings. "Well, maybe I'm just a bit tired." Janet seemed to realize I was still hiding something. "Mom, you're doing that thing with your hands, rubbing them together. That's what you do when you're lying." Caught by Janet's keen observation, I couldn't help but smile wryly. She continued, "Dad hasn't been home for the past couple days. Does that have something to do with this?" Janet's clear eyes seemed to see right through me, making me flinch. I took a deep breath and decided to tell her the truth. I knew I couldn't keep this hidden forever, so I explained everything that had happened. After hearing it all, Janet sighed. I see. That's just like Dad, isn't it?" "What? You're not surprised?" I asked in amazement. Janet replied, Not really. I kinda thought something like this might happen someday." She seemed so composed, which made my agitation seem foolish. But deep down, she must be saddened by our divorce. Apologizing to her in my heart for my inadequacy, I decided to work even harder from the next day. However, I wasn't the toughest person, and my deteriorating mental state, coupled with my physical health, worsened day by day. One day, during a company-wide inventory in the warehouse, I couldn't keep standing despite my efforts. I collapsed on the spot. "What's wrong?" "No, I just feel a bit nauseous. I'll take a short break." That was the last thing I remember before losing consciousness. I vaguely sensed my colleagues worrying and calling out to me, but then everything went black. When I awoke, I saw a stark white ceiling, surrounded by numerous tubes. I was in a hospital. After I lost consciousness, my colleagues called an ambulance. The doctors said I needed a thorough examination and I was admitted to the hospital. Blaming myself for my lack of strength, I wet my pillow with tears. In the evening, the usually calm and collected Janet rushed into the hospital, panicking. As I wiped away my tears, she began to speak frantically. "Mom, are you okay? You're not gonna die, right?" Seeing my usually mature daughter in such a panic, I stroked her head, reassuring her. "What are you talking about? I can't die and leave you alone. I'm fine." "That's a relief. I was so scared." Janet was still only 12. I had to get better for her sake. With renewed determination, I prepared myself to recover. But my condition was more serious than I thought. The doctors found shadows on my internal organs and suggested surgery, suspecting it might be malignant. I underwent the surgery as advised. Fortunately, the tumor was benign, but I was told to keep monitoring it. After a month, I was able to leave the hospital. It was exactly 1 month since Luke disappeared. Upon returning home, I checked the mailbox and found an envelope. Inside the house, I opened it to discover a reminder notice for the car loan payment. I was puzzled as my bank account had a substantial amount of money, enough to cover more than a month's worth of loan repayments. That's strange. Rushing to check my bank balance online, I was shocked to see the amount. The balance displayed there was $3. Refusing to believe it, I kept pressing the refresh button repeatedly, but no matter how many times I did, the number 3 was all that appeared, mockingly on the screen. What? No way, there should be $40,000. On the verge of panic, I checked the shelf where my passbook was usually kept, only to find it empty. Luke. The culprit was clear, but Luke was nowhere to be found, and there was nothing I could do. Even if I wanted to sell the car, it was gone. Since Luke left, nothing good has happened. Feeling this way, my heart became completely heavy with sadness. Noticing my state, Janet kindly patted my shoulder, showing her concern. "Mom, you're pale. Are you feeling sick again?" I had no choice but to reveal the situation to Janet. I'm physically fine, but your father took not only the car, but all our savings too. I can't return to work right away, and I'm in trouble. Then Janet, placing her hands on her hips and speaking in a firm tone, said, Don't worry, Mom. We're both alive and well. I'll look for jobs online, even if I have to hide my age. I can try programming. They pay well. Hearing my 12-year-old daughter's encouraging words, I realized I couldn't afford to be down. I'm sorry to worry you. I'll do my best. I'll promise. I smiled, and Janet, looking pleased, smiled back mischievously and suggested a plan. First things first, let's get the car back from Dad. I turned to her in surprise. How can we do that? The car's in your name, right? Yes, it is. Unable to decipher Janet's thoughts, I listened intently. So here's what we'll do. Hearing the strategy Janet outlined, I was so impressed that I instinctively slapped my knee in admiration. However, my sense of relief was quickly replaced by anxiety. But I don't even know where your dad is. We can find out. Remember the GPS? We installed it on Dad's phone after that one time I got lost. Previously, when Janet unexpectedly got lost, we gave her a child's mobile phone to prevent such incidents in the future and installed a GPS app on both Luke's and my phones. Dad's been moving around a lot. I've been keeping an eye on him. Really? But how will we catch him? Janet smirked. I've already got a plan. I was astonished at my daughter's cunning strategy, which even included information about Luke's affair partner. Let's make Dad, who betrayed us, pay for what he's done. Thus, Janet and I began our preparations. A few days later, my phone rang. Donna, is that you? Help me. Yes. Who is this? It was Luke. He was angry at my pretending not to recognize him. What are you talking about? I'm your husband. I'm being questioned by the police on the street. If things continue like this, I might be taken to the police station. Come and explain for me. Fine, I understand. Just wait there a bit. Knowing from the GPS that Luke was surprisingly close, I took Janet to his location. There he was, standing in front of the car, being questioned by the police. I informed the officers that we would have a discussion and asked them to leave for the time being. Then, looking somewhat embarrassed, Luke instructed Janet and me to get into the car. Inside was a young woman, Luke's mistress, glaring at us. Frankly, I didn't care about her presence at all. Once the door was closed, Luke sighed and said, I'm glad you came. But why were those cops questioning me? Why? Because the car was missing and I filed a theft report. Donna replied. Luke's eyes widened in surprise. What? Why would you do that? What do you mean, why? If someone steals your car, of course, you report it. Luke continued to argue, claiming that crimes between spouses don't count and that it was shared properly, but he and I were already divorced. Such excuses were invalid. You were the one who filed the divorce papers, remember? Using someone else's car without permission is theft. I just borrowed it for a bit. Oh, just borrowed? Then I guess you'll be returning it. I extended my hand and Luke, seemingly resigned, reluctantly handed over the car keys. Janet, who had been quietly observing, then spoke up. Dad, why did you leave us for her? Luke, not expecting such a direct question from his daughter, was visibly shaken and struggled to respond. The woman, however, suddenly laughed and answered Janet's question. Because I'm younger and prettier than your mom. He's so crazy about me that he doesn't care about you guys. And you know what? I wasn't asking you! Janet cut her off sharply. Dad, you answer me. Stephanie fell silent at Janet's assertiveness, and Luke remained quiet. If you won't answer, then I'll have the police take you away. At this, Luke panicked and said, Wait, I'll talk. Just give me a chance. Stephanie, Luke's mistress, had joined his company as a new employee 4 months ago. They hit it off at a welcome party and quickly became involved. Stephanie was already pregnant, and Luke had decided to leave his family for a new life with her. He had taken the car intending to sell it but hadn't done so yet. You've been traveling a lot, haven't you? Yeah, just a little trip. But how do you know that? The GPS app. Remember, we installed it. Luke's shoulders slumped as he remembered. It was on purpose. I suggested installing the GPS when I noticed you acting weird. I was surprised by Janet's revelation. You are something else. Not wanting to be outdone, I faced Luke. Return $40,000 you stole from me now. But that's Marcia property. What are you talking about? That money was mine, saved since before we were married. Apparently, Luke had already spent $40,000 with Stephanie. I was beyond angry. I was astounded at this absurdity of it all. Not only did you use the car, but you also spent all the money. This is a serious crime. Or did you just borrow that money too? While we were talking, Stephanie tried to sneak away quietly. However, the moment she stepped out of the car, she gasped in shock. There stood her parents, their faces rigid with anger. Why are you here, Mom and Dad? I called them, Janet said bluntly. While I was in the hospital, Janet had gone to Luke's company, pretending to cry and saying, My dad left us. She quickly learned that Stephanie was the suspect, and the compassionate employees provided her parents' address. Luke and Stephanie's relationship was an open secret at their company. They were always together, and it was clear to everyone that their relationship was more than just professional, especially since they left the company at the same time. I showed them a picture of old lady, and they agreed to talk to me. Stephanie, now overwhelmed by being called old lady, couldn't react to the shock. I added fuel to the fire. Stephanie, was it? I see your belly is quite big. When is the baby due? Everyone's attention turned to Stephanie's momentarily stunned expression. In 3 months. So soon? Let me think. 1, 2, 3. Wait, that doesn't add up. Confused, Luke looked at us. What's going on? Even though you have a child, you don't understand? Pregnancy to birth is about 9 months. Didn't you meet her 4 months ago? Even if she got pregnant right away, why would the baby be born in 7 months? Luke finally understood and began to tremble. Stephanie, did you deceive me? Stephanie defiantly replied, Yeah, I thought I could fool someone as dumb as you. Don't joke with me. You've ruined my life. As Luke and Stephanie started an ugly quarrel, Janet and I called the police again. Soon, a police car arrived. Please, not the police. Luke's plea sounded almost like a cry, but Janet and I looked at him coldly. Once you've paid your dues, return my money slowly. I'll find a place for you to work. Property division, child support, half of the mortgage, and $40,000 you stole from me. Work hard and pay it all back. To Stephanie, who watched Luke being led away as if it was someone else's problem, I also said, You knew about this, so you are an accomplice to theft. If Luke can't pay back the money, you'll have to. Be prepared. Stephanie, trembling, looked to her parents for help, but they were beyond consoling her. Thus, Janet and I successfully dealt with Luke and his mistress. Though they faced charges, they were quickly bailed out due to being first offenders and showing remorse. However, they were now embroiled in a hellish repayment life. I managed to secure full payment of my demands from both of them and also ensured that Luke promised to pay $600 per month for Janet's child support. I arranged for Luke to work at a subcontractor's warehouse affiliated with my company, where his salary would be garnished to repay me. Amidst all this, I wasn't completely unaffected, but gradually my health improved. And now I'm back to work, feeling energetic every day. Living with Janet, just the two of us, she earnestly helps with household chores. As a parent, my only wish is for Janet to lead a life as flourishing and beautiful as a fully bloomed English rose, true to the essence of her name.